Hey there, who would you want to meet today? How about someone who's young, under the age of 30, a successful entrepreneur, in the area of cutting edge technology like artificial intelligence? How about two people who dropped out of business school and never really had a formal education in technology? So join me in welcoming the founders of TruTech, Raghav Aggarwal and Abhinav Aggarwal.
We believe that the only way to predict the future is to create it.
You started off with no formal background, as we just spoke about. So what brought about this interest in the field?
So the thing is, we were always excited by technology. When we were in school, it was the late 90s, 2000s. So we saw the whole first .com boom and bust kind of in the front of our eyes. And we said, hey, can we bring a slice of this to our educational lives? He said the simplest thing we can do is attack problems that we face on a daily basis. And one of them was, practicing from last year's exam papers. And we said, hey, we can sort of scan these papers, not very difficult to do that, and we can put them online so that the whole purpose of, getting a senior and then getting them Xerox and, all that sort of goes away. And one thing led to another. We became pretty good at it. The website got a whole lot of users, and we said, this is good, but we can take this much further. And that's when we really deep dive into technology.
And artificial intelligence. So how did, from exam papers to artificial intelligence, how did that leap happen?
We used to keep doing research on the latest techniques, the latest technology out there. We used to keep trying out. I get inspired by a lot of sci-fi movies as well. So we used to keep about 20-25% of our time for new projects or new research. And out of that, we then came across AI in a big way. We started doing some work in it, and then it really exploded. We found big gains where we can do a lot of stuff that we only dreamt about via the technology, and that's when we started investing more time and energy into it and taking it.
Great, and let's come to what people love to hear about, the dropout. So Ahmedabad didn't seem to fit well with you, and ISB Hyderabad didn't seem to agree with you. Why was that thing? Why did you take that decision?
The challenge was that we started this when he was in school and I was in my undergrad. And we had seen it sort of scale and grow. And by the time we actually entered into B school, we saw this tremendous growth path out here. And we were like, we can't skip 2 years, because especially being in a field like technology intersecting with innovation, 2 years is a decade, right? Secondly, what we felt was that while conceptually B schools do prepare you for the world outside, sometimes the hard knocks school of life, actually learning it on your own, being with your team and being with your startup through that journey teaches you a lot more because you're constantly kind of innovating. So yeah, we are largely an artificial intelligence company, and we are using the power of data and using AI combined with that to create real cool solutions for our clients. So one of the most interesting things we're doing is we're working a lot in the banking sector to sort of create experiences within the branch, within the ATM, wherein if someone walks in, he can be greeted by our AI, by a screen that's enabled by artificial intelligence, which can then sort of see, okay, this person may be interested in what product, rather than, having the person to tell him, okay, I'm interested in a savings account. It will sort of say, okay, are you interested in education loan? Can I talk to you about that? And you interacted with it, not with a touch or a keyboard, but with your gestures.
So we call it the branch of the future concept, basically the bank of the future.
Okay.
And a lot of the decisioning that the AI is making of what to sell you, what products, is then driven by a core engine at the back end.
Right.
I think industry-wise, we're looking at, one is completely changing the retail landscape. The way people currently approach their traditional brick and mortar stores and the way technology enables those will fundamentally shift. And then the other place where we see is organizations being very data smart now, being able to predict a customer's behavior or predict his future before he does anything, and then be able to actionably take insights and actions based on that.
So you started this AI venture at a time when perhaps it wasn't as well recognized and accepted as it is today in the market. So did that bring any of its own challenges?
No, definitely. I think, being a little early in the market has its own challenges because people are not still comfortable with the concept. They're not that aware with the concept. So when we'd go to a bank and we'd say, hey, there's this AI solution, we'd actually have to start from the ABC of what we're talking about. And now, opposed to when AI is in its heydays, people now actively know everything. They want to know how to deploy it and how to go about it. So the conversations definitely become a lot easier now.
Yeah. But looking at some of the other challenges perhaps that you would have faced while starting out or while trying to grow.
Obviously, I think when we started we were fairly young, so a lot of the questions were, will you guys be there next year or will you, head off to some sort of educational thing? And I think the way we won trust early on was obviously was with the model which was, we said, your success is our success. So we said to a lot of people, we said, okay, maybe you don't pay us upfront, but let us launch this for you, use it for a month and then see it, and if it works, it works. And that sort of helped us. But yeah, the first couple of months or at least a year was challenging because we were trying to figure out a model wherein, obviously we wanted to be rewarded for our efforts. But we had customers who were sort of uncomfortable dealing with someone so young.
There was a credibility, there was a whole thing.
Exactly, there was no fancy office, it was just the two of us at home.
So I'm thinking a lot of my viewers sitting there would love to be in your shoes. So they're young, they're dying to be an entrepreneur and they want to be in a field like AI or something as exciting as this. So what advice would you want to give them?
I think they should take up something they're passionate about, because startups do have their highs and their low moments and stuff. So if you're doing something that's just for the money, in the low moments it becomes very hard to sustain. And I think moving quickly, in terms of not aiming at trying to do too much on the first try, failing fast is what I'd like to call it. Because what we often see a lot of people do is just a little too much planning, a little too much preparation and a lot of survey and feasibility analysis. But all that really goes out of the window when you meet the first client. You say, oh, I actually want something totally different. And start young. That I think was one of our biggest advantages, because when we started so young, the risk or the downside of failing was incredibly low. So if it failed, it didn't really matter to us. We would just go to college the next day and say, okay, we'll figure things out once we graduate. I think being adaptable is very important. I think the new millennials and all are very adaptable as a generation, which is important. And I always tell people that if you're starting up, you should be ready to change your business model within the first few months itself. It's a very rare case that you'll see someone start with something, an idea, and end with that idea maybe 3 to 5 years later. And to set up good contingencies. So so even for us, like for me, ISB was a great backup plan because I knew that I had got admission 2 years earlier. So I knew that if it doesn't work out, I always have a backup.
I think another skill that is interesting for youngsters today to sort of bring to the table is the whole because we are really the first generation of people who have really done digital first, and so they are able to bring to their companies or to their startups or to the companies they work for a very different vision and idea of how the future is going to evolve. And they should be able to sort of articulate that, not afraid to express themselves on that. I see a lot of good ideas, but I think somewhere the younger generation has a slight challenge expressing those ideas.
So talking about doing a startup while you're still at college, okay, and here's a piece about doing it in India. So do you think it's easier to do it in India?
I think it is easier in India because if you look at foreign education, the way it is structured, my thinking on this is that in India you get a lot of time, whether it be the holidays or it be even your day-to-day schedule. For better or for worse, we are an exam-based culture, in India. So I think in India the challenge is not so much the time piece, because you can sort of create that when you're in college. The challenge is more around structure, because whereas abroad you have the culture of young innovators coming out, in India we're still an economy wherein your customers, your clients are used to seeing someone a little older across the table.
So rather looking at India as a market, it's a relatively younger market when it comes to startups being able to make their presence felt. So what do you feel are the pros and cons of an entrepreneur being based out of India?
So yeah, India is interesting. I'd like to say that some Indian companies who are approaching the consumer, they are in a sort of a very happy space because the Indian consumer as a whole is very experimentative. He's price conscious, that's definite. You can't, if you exceed certain thresholds, he won't even look at you. But if you are in those price thresholds, he's ready to experiment with your brand, with a different feature. On the enterprise side, India is still evolving as a market. There's a lot of culture about people don't want to be first. The question abroad sometimes that we get as a company is any of our competition using you? And it's a negative bias because they're like, we want to be the first to sort of use your technology, so we get a competitive advantage. And in India, it's sort of a very positive bias. You can say, I'm doing ABC, and people are like,
wow,
yeah, it's credible. I need to get these guys immediately. So, being a startup, obviously, you won't have ABC with you.
And once you get that ABC, I think India is the place.
India is the place to be, right? Because then it's like, DEF will just come to you saying, just do it.
Looking at your own recruitment strategy and looking at people watching the show probably wondering what does it take to join you. So what are the kinds of skills you look for in people when you hire them?
So we definitely look for people, who have a big passion for what they do, and a lot of so we don't look at marks that much. So if someone's a good scorer, he's like a 90%er, that's something we look at and we'll value, okay, this is a good, this guy's a hard worker, he knows his stuff, he's intelligent. If he's a low scorer, then we ignore that piece actually. The second piece that we look at is what kind of work you've done. So even if you're a fresher, we judge passion by saying that, okay, what kind of projects have you done? Was your college project something you bought from the market, or was it something you actually built? Did you take it further post the submission? Did you try and deploy it? Did you launch it? Did you pilot it with someone? The other part of our process, we have actually quite a few rounds that we run through our recruitment process. I think about 6-7 rounds we have. So a lot of the first ones are technical based. We'll have one wherein a lot of them are learning ability based, where we want to know how quickly can someone learn. So we'll do, for example, we'll have a Rubik's Cube round for some of our guys. But what we do is, so we'll ask them to solve as much as they can, set it as the base, and then ask them to actually redo the solve by giving them some tips or advice. And then we'll see how further did they get from their previous solve. And that gives us the idea of how quick a learner are you.
Okay, and you're obviously a pro at it.
Yeah, so I can do one in 60 seconds. I've got a lot of practice advising people, so that definitely helps.
Once we're done with this, I'm going to learn.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that's one piece. We have a lot of aptitude tests, which judge overall skill. Even in for a programmer, we'll try and judge your capability to program, so you're not so worried about knowing a particular language, but are your core concepts strong? A lot of people we find today out of the system, their core concepts are very weak, which is because they've either never coded something or they've coded things in simulated environments. Let's say the teacher's given us a problem, or we've worked on these 10 problems, but we've never really coded a platform to do X. So which is why the knowledge is slightly weak. We'll have a little bot that will take an interview as well. So that's something new we've introduced. So a bot will actually converse with you and take one round. And then the final is an interview with both of us, one of us.
But is it largely programming related skills, or is it mathematics as well?
It's more generic, yeah. So more mathematical, more programming concept oriented. So something that if we ask you how would you go about this structure, he should be able to give a very concrete strategy. Maybe he doesn't know how to code it out per se, but as long as his base is strong. We both are always of the opinion that the school is always as good as the student is. The student is the one who decides how much value to derive from the education environment around him. Building
so
that.
Information as a whole has become a cheap commodity, right? You can go to Google and you can literally download each and every one of your textbooks, and you can sort of get the same amount of info. It's if you're looking at formal education, use it to derive how to learn. I think that's taking from what Abhinav previously said. Otherwise, it's all out there right now. We're not really in a generation wherein you say, oh, there's this interesting piece of information which can only be accessed if I go to X school or Y school. It's all out there.
Okay, so for the last segment of the show, tell us the most exhilarating AI moment that you had.
This was back, I think 2.5 years back, when we were asked by, so Hero Motocorp just split from Honda at the time. So they actually were launching one of the latest bikes, the Aster, at that time. And they said, wouldn't it be great if we could have drones fly in, lift the wheel off the bike, and launch the whole thing? And we said, yeah, but you can't, it's a major launch, so you can't have any human error. And that's when it hit us that we could use AI to actually control the drones. So it was something none of us had ever done, but they went with the concept, and we said, okay, we'll figure it out along the way. And it was a very sharp deadline as well. So, a lot of us worked nights, and we in fact have a lot of broken pieces of drone around the office that month. So we actually then trained an AI to take all the sensor data, fly autonomously on its own. And then, at the launch we did it, so it lifted the wheel off the bike as soon as the MD, Mr. Munjal, did the gesture.
And let me command this wheel here to lift off.
Yeah, it was just amazing because we were taking AI to the physical world, drones and AI. So I think everyone was sort of excited about what we were doing there.
Really, I think it's super exciting the work that you do, and thanks so much for being on the show. And wish you all the luck, and I'm sure you're going to go places just like that drone. And probably a few years later, we'd love to have you back on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was
Great
wonderful
being here.
Please click the subscribe button below. Like me at facebook.com/ChetChat101. Follow my Twitter handle ChetChat101 or at Instagram ChetChat101. Please leave your comments in the sections below. And if you'd like me to feature any particular college, please let me know. Thank you.